I just came back from Nisei week in Little Tokyo, and I wanted to share with you some of my experiences. I went into one of the exhibits called Go for Broke. It was free to enter, and it mostly focused on the experience of Japanese Americans in internment camps during World War II. And it was definitely more of an interactive experience. There's a video in the beginning where you hear testimonials about people's experiences in the camps, and there's a section that you could share your story about bravery. So a lot of people were writing on these cards. You just basically get a little card and you write your story of a time where you were brave, and you hang it on the wall. So a lot of people were writing about that they had the experience of living in maybe in a communist country or something, living somewhere where a freedom was taken from them, and how they stood up to the system. So that was really interesting. Celebrate Tanabata by writing their wishes on a card and hanging it on a tree, which is interesting because if you go to the Go for Broke exhibition, there is a section for you to write. Like I said, you write on a card a moment that you were brave, and it is kind of like making a wish for a better world and standing up to intolerance, and you hang the card on a wall. So I think it was a good idea that they decided to include that in the exhibition, especially for this time of the year. It's a celebration of these two deities called Orihime and Hikoboshi. And they are basically separated by the Milky Way, and they're only allowed to meet once a year, so during this time. It depends on what region of Japan you're in. They celebrate it on different days, but it's usually between July and August. Has also been a celebration for like 69 years or so. Aside from that, the Japanese American National Museum was also free to enter, and they had a bunch of activities. They had a taiko performance, They had free like family activities to make hats and things like that, and a scavenger hunt. I'm not sure how that works, but they had a scavenger hunt. And then obviously you could enter all the exhibits. Their permanent exhibit seems to also focus on the internment camps, and they have a lot of artifacts about the Nisei. Nisei refers to anyone of Japanese ancestry who is second generation. So that's why it's called Nisei Week. It's a celebration really of the Japanese community in LA, in East LA. So this permanent exhibit is really more about that community in East LA that is now known as Little Tokyo. There was also the exhibit of George Takei called New Frontiers, The Many Worlds of George Takei. So George Takei was born in LA, and he's Nisei, so he is second generation. His parents were Japanese immigrants, and he experienced life in the internment camps when he was only 5 years old. I didn't know that. So that exhibit really talks a lot about his experiences. As he says, basically experiencing intolerance from the get-go. So he had to experience it as a child, growing up during World War II. He was very small during World War II. But then also when he decided to become an actor, he had to deal with yellowface, as it's called, and not getting really relevant roles as an Asian in Hollywood. And apart from that, coming out as gay as well made things very difficult. So he's always been an activist, and he's been involved in, he's really experienced every type of prejudice, I guess, for his sexuality, for his race, and then really also not just his race, but, you know, experiencing that sort of distrust, not just because he's Asian, because Asian immigrants have always had a pretty bad rap anyway in the US. So even before World War II, Asians already had plenty of problems here. So with World War II, he basically experienced unfounded prejudice and sort of like a red scare, yellow scare. So it was pretty cool to see his exhibition. It's full of art pieces and some of his family photos and things like that. And his stories, some videos of him talking about not just the things that he's experienced in Hollywood and racism in Hollywood and all that stuff. Also just having to deal with coming out and his marriage to his partner and things like that. So that was my coverage of Nisei Week in Little Tokyo. Next week I'm going to Artopia. It's at Union Station. And if you are in LA and you're interested in going, I'm going to put a link in the description below. I'm also going to add links to all the things I visit, like the Japanese National Museum. I think this exhibit for George Takei is open until, so the George Takei exhibit is over. Tomorrow's the last day, so you can't see that. Oh my god, it's a good thing that I decided to go to Little Tokyo today. It's a great exhibit. Sorry to say that it's a little bit late for you. But I wonder if it's I don't think it's a traveling exhibit, is it? No one else is getting this exhibit. So, yeah. So if you like this video, please leave a like, and if not, And don't forget to subscribe. Bye. Most of the artifacts or objects, most of the objects on display are actual, I think they were like, I remember passports and naturalization forms and stuff of people who were at these internment camps, and it was just basically things that they were allowed to bring with them, and it was almost nothing. They were only allowed one suitcase. So they mostly brought with them their family photos, which kind of reminds me of the exhibit in Miami of the Peter Pan flights. So, let me not get into that.